Okay guys, today we're going to get into decreasing and increasing by a percentage, but first off, I want to make sure that you guys are aware of a notice that I put out. So right here in the calendar, check Microsoft Teams. You should have been emailed a link to join my Microsoft team. If that didn't happen, well, maybe just ask around and see if you can get it. I'll also send an email out at some point, okay? But today, decreasing and increasing by a percentage. Continuing on with our fractions, decimals, and percentages topic. And this is when we're decreasing and increasing things by percentages. So a common way to think of real-world examples so these would be like the application type problems. Would be with money. Money, there's often talk of a percentage loss or a percentage gain, so it's a really good example of a real-world application of this type of topic. A percentage decrease. A percentage decrease would be if we had a sale. All of our favorite things in the world are all sales, so if we had a decrease of 50% off, a sale. I'll get rid of that. For 50% off. That's a pretty good deal. And it will mean that it's half of the percentage of the entire price, okay? So it's 50% off, then we get a half off for it, okay? A percentage increase would be like saying a markup or a surcharge. Is a good way of trying to represent a percentage increase. Would be a way to show percentage increase. So I don't know how many of you guys order Domino's pizza a lot, and I'm not sure if they still do this, but a few years ago, they started doing a Sunday surcharge, which meant that because they had to pay their workers more on a Sunday, they charged you more. So usually it would be $5, well, it would be an extra 10% surcharge on that $5. So they have to pay an extra 10%, which is a really good example of a percentage increase of a product. Some common words that will be used to represent decrease. So they might not always say, what is the percentage decrease? They might give you some other words that they will mix in there, but you just need to be aware of what they all mean. So a common word to represent decrease is something like a reduction, a sale, loss, words like that. Okay. Reduction would be if the price goes down. Sale, again, we're taking some off, or a loss would maybe be talking about overall profit or something like that. Common words to represent increase. Now, not decrease anymore. Words to represent increase, markup, profit, surcharge, and words like that, which means you're paying more than what it was before, or you have more money than what you originally had. Before we increase or decrease, before we increase or decrease, we need to be able to find a percentage of a quantity. to find a percentage of a quantity. So that is why we did yesterday's lesson on finding percentages, because we need to make sure we know how to find a percentage of a quantity before we add or take it away from our final price, showing that reduction or our increase. Okay, and I'll put in brackets 3H here, and then I'll put a link here. I'll put a link right there at the end of this video, so you guys can just click on that if you're confused by what I mean. In retail terms, so now we're talking strictly in terms of retail. If we have a selling price, well, a selling price is equal to the retail price take away the discount, or it's going to be the retail price, add the markup. So a bit of real world knowledge for you guys. Stores never sell something for the exact same that they bought it, okay? If you want to go into a store, they're always going to sell it for more because they all want to make a profit. They all want to make money. No one wants a business where we're not making any money. So the retail price take away the discount is going to be the sale price or the selling price, or the retail price plus the markup is going to be the selling price, because that's what they're selling it for, supply and demand. And then GST, and I'll just name it the goods and services tax. Goods and services tax. GST is a 10% tax that applies to some items. Essentially, it's a 10% markup. And I'll put it in quotations because it's not, we don't call it a 10% markup, but really it's just a 10% markup. Okay. So now let's get into some examples. So let's go to the first one. We have $160 is increased by 40%. So $160 is firstly increased by 40%. Well, the first thing we need to figure out is what is 40% of 160? We don't know what 40% of 160 is, so we need to first find that. Well, let's make 40 into a fraction or a decimal. Okay, 40%, well, that is equal to 4 out of 10, or 0.4. I'm going to work with fractions because fractions are a lot easier to show the method in what we're doing things in the arithmetic. With decimals, you will kind of revert to plugging into a calculator. So let's try and encourage fractions as much as possible because it increases our mental math capabilities with these types of problems. So we've got 4 out of 10, and we're going to multiply that by 160. This is from the lesson yesterday from exercise 3H. Again, if you're confused on any of this that I'm doing right now, please go back and look at it. I can take out a common factor of 10 from 16 and 10. From 160 and 10, sorry. And now it just turns into 4 times 16. Well, that is just going to be equal to 64. Now, I'm not done. This is equal, so that is my 40% of 160. Well, now I need to add that onto my final total because I want to increase it by 40%. Therefore, 160 plus 64, that's equal to $224, and that's going to be my final answer. The next one, find the cost of an oven which is 25% off from 800. So find the cost of an oven which is 25% off of 800. Now it doesn't say anything about increase or decrease, so we need to try and analyze the question to find that word that tells us if we're doing an increase or a decrease. So I'm going to look through and I find 25% off, and that is going to be my gimme. That's my gimme information. 25% off, that implies a decrease. Okay. Now there are probably a lot of ways in which you could do this. You could times 800 by 3/4. You could times it by a quarter and then times by 3. However, I'm going to follow the same way in which we've been doing things. So I'm going to find a quarter. I'm going to find 25%. And so I can rewrite 25%. So 25 over 100, because percent is per 100. And that's just going to be 1 over 4. So then I go and I multiply 1 over 4 times 800, and that 800 is then just going to be 200. Again, that is, this 200 here is my 20%, 25% of 800. So I need to now take this away from my final answer. So 800 take away 200, well that's just going to give me $600, and that is my final answer for that one. So it's essentially just adding an extra step on from yesterday's topic. We found a percentage from a quantity before, and now we're just finding that quantity and then adding or taking it away from our original product to try and find a sale price, a markup, or a reduction. All right. The questions are assigned at the top there, guys. I'll also put them in the calendar for you guys to just have easy access to once you have a look at everything.